Most leaders think their biggest leadership problem is strategy. It's not. It's response. When pressure hits, when conflict shows up, when expectations are missed, when the market shifts, most leaders don't lose the room because they lacked intelligence. They lose the room because they lost control of the moment. And that matters because leadership isn't revealed in the plan. Leadership is revealed in the response. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, leadership actually lives. This is where trust is either built or broken. This is where culture is reinforced or weakened. It's where momentum is protected or lost. You don't control every stimulus. You don't control the market, the economy, or other people's emotions, or every disruption that touches your business. But you do control your response. And that response does more than affect you. It teaches your organization what standard governs this team. That's why this matters, because culture is not built in speeches. It's built in repeated responses under pressure. Anybody can talk values when things are easy. The real question is, what do you do when they're not? Now, here's the mistake most leaders make. They think reaction is authenticity. They'll say, that's just how I am. Just being honest, I'm just passionate. No. A lot of the time, what people call authenticity is just ungoverned patterning. A stimulus happens, then comes the interpretation, then comes the response, then comes the consequence. Most people move too fast to see the middle, so they react rather than respond. And reactive leadership always creates instability. Reactive leaders spread emotional volatility. Responsive leaders spread clarity. Reactive leaders amplify noise. Responsive leaders create signal. Reactive leaders turn pressure into confusion. Responsive leaders turn pressure into direction. That's the difference. Viktor Frankl wrote from one of the darkest human environments imaginable that even when almost everything is stripped away, there remains a human freedom. The ability to choose one's attitude and one's way forward. That principle matters because it exposes something serious leaders can't afford to forget. Circumstances are powerful, but they're not ultimate. Response still belongs to you. And in leadership, that truth scales. When a founder reacts, the leadership team absorbs it. When the leadership team reacts, the organization absorbs it. When the organization reacts, execution fragments. That's how drift begins. Not in one catastrophic collapse, but with thousands of unmanaged responses. A sharp email, a defensive meeting, a delayed conversation, a rushed decision, a passive-aggressive comment, a refusal to own what's true. That's how culture erodes. And most organizations don't suffer because they lack talent. They suffer because they're misaligned. Misalignment between identity, culture, and execution. And one of the first places that misalignment shows up is in how people respond under pressure. So when a stimulus hits, the leadership question is not who's at fault, who's annoying me, how do I defend myself, how do I win this moment? The question is, who am I going to be in this moment? And that question changes everything because strong organizations don't let pressure define them. They let values define them. They let standards define them. They let mission define them. That's leadership. Ownership means I don't outsource responsibility for my tone, for my words, my actions, or my standards to another person's behavior. Ownership says, you may have created the stimulus, but I still own the response. That's where freedom is. That's where power comes from. Not external control, internal governance. And this is why some teams stay steady in chaos while others collapse. This is why some leaders create alignment while others create dependency. This is why some companies scale with clarity and others stall in friction. Because one has to build a culture of response, the other's trapped in reaction. And here's the deeper truth. Every stimulus is an opportunity to reinforce the standard, an opportunity to build trust, an opportunity to model ownership, and an opportunity to prove that your values are real, an opportunity to show your team how pressure gets handled here. That's why response is not just emotional control, it's culture designed at the speed of now. Every response is instruction. In a meeting you teach, in conflict you teach, in setbacks you teach, in correction you teach, in disappointment you teach. So if your team avoids conflict, look at how leaders respond to tension. If your team is hiding mistakes, look at how the leaders respond to failure. If your team waits for permission, look at how leaders respond to initiative. If your team lacks ownership, look at how often leaders model blame. Culture is always being taught. The only question is whether you're teaching it on purpose. So, what do you do with this? Start simple. Slow the moment down. Create space. Refuse immediate reaction. Before you speak, ask, what outcome do I want here? What response aligns with our values? What does leadership require in this moment? What would strengthen the culture instead of weaken it? That pause, it's not weakness, it's command. And once you learn to use it, your leadership changes, your communication sharpens, your decisions improve, and your team feels safer. Your standards get clearer. Your execution gets cleaner because you're no longer being dragged around by every stimulus. You're leading from intention. Now, does this happen overnight? No. Because most people already have old response patterns wired in. Defensiveness, control, withdrawal, over-talking, avoidance, blame. Those patterns feel automatic because they've been rehearsed. But anything rehearsed can be replaced. That's the good news. You can install a better response pattern. You can train a better standard. You can build a better culture, one moment at a time. So when pressure rises, pause. When emotion spikes, breathe. When conflict appears, get curious before you get loud. And when someone misses, move toward clarity, not contempt. So when you're triggered, ask what pattern is trying to run. When a situation goes sideways, ask what leadership would look like here. That's how the new response gets built. And over time, that response becomes culture. Not culture as a slogan, but culture as a system of repeated behaviors under pressure. A system of shared standards, a system of ownership, a system of aligned execution. So remember this, you may not control the stimulus, but you do control the response. And the response will shape the result, not only for you, but for everyone you lead. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is your freedom, your power, and your control, and the future culture of your organization. And if your team's culture changes depending on pressure, you don't have culture yet. You've just got to move. Build the system, install the standard, lead the response. If you want to learn more about activating leadership culture in your company, check out Leader.one. Take the leadership culture assessment. We can help you build a company valuable enough people want to buy, strong enough that you never have to sell.